This is Operation again. If you're a subscriber of mine, you've probably already seen my episode on Operation where I went through the original 1965 to the current 2025 and even included one of the novelty Simpsons versions as well for good measure. Now, one of the problems I had with that episode was as much as it was fun to go over the history of the game and compare how it evolved, I had a hard time finding vintage editions of the game with a working buzzer. However, a good friend and subscriber of mine gave me a call this past weekend. They were at a swap meet kind of deal, a little local fair, and somebody had a few editions of Operation available, and I was able to get one that had a working buzzer. Now, this one here has the 1965 copyright information and is part number 4545X, just like 1965. However, there are some notable differences, so I know that this is not an original 1965. This would be circa mid-1970s due to the changes in plastic, and there is a bit of a change to the buzzer mechanism, but it's relatively minor. Now, one of the reasons I know that it's a 70s versus 80s is in the 80s, they had incandescent light bulbs for the nose that were actually colored glass, and in the 60s through the 70s, they would have these rubber sheaths over the light bulb instead to make it red. Now, of course, that also made the light a little bit dimmer as well, but these ran on 2 D-cell batteries, so these are pretty fancy. However, that being said, so I released a video where I talked about the history of Operation and just a brief overview. It was originally created in 1964 by a man named John Spinello, who was a student at the time, and he sold the patent to Marvin Glass for $500 on the promise of a job, which of course Marvin Glass did not provide him, unfortunately. Milton Bradley published the game as Operation in 1965 based off of the prototype, but with a number of changes to Spinello's original design. So basically the only thing that really remains the same between Operation and John Spinello's original design is the patent on using a probe, or these metal tweezers in this instance, to navigate through a little metal kind of mazeway or other little obstacles. And so in this instance, they took that concept and turned it into Operation. Now that we've gotten through the history, of course, this is an iconic game with an iconic buzzer. And I want to go over some of these newer ones first, just so we can refresh in our minds, because I have a lot of people who show up in my comment section on the Operation video, and even before then, they wanted the review for it because we were convinced that the buzzers on the new versions of Operation are not as powerful as the buzzers on the vintage one. So I want to put that to the test. Now, I actually have an additional microphone here so we can get right up close and personal and get the best possible audio. And I want to start with the newer ones and then hit this older one to really see how they stack up. Now, the last produced version from Hasbro that meets the most traditional standards of Operation would have been this 2015 edition here. So we'll get started with this one. Now, this one does not have an incandescent bulb. It looks to be an LED inside of a little pressure activated housing, so you can test the game by pressing on it there. Let's get a sound here from the probe hitting it. So it has haptic feedback. It actually vibrates a little bit. The nose lights up. It's very sensitive. I want to point out that it's very sensitive. You get an indication right away when you touch the edge, which I think is necessary to the quality of this game. You really do want Operation to let you know when you've hit the edges. If it's too forgiving, it takes away from the fun. Now, this edition here I have is from 2025. I was very impressed with this one in the review, as it actually is a foldable, transportable version. This one, again, has a pressure-sensitive nose for test. And you can also use that nose to change game modes, too. This actually has a single-player game mode. Now, this has more of an audio recording quality to the buzzer, but here we go. And there's actually a speaker, you'll notice, right here. So let's go ahead and get some audio here. Now, you can tell right away the 2025 edition has it also vibrates. It also has some haptic feedback here, which I love. I think the vibration just adds a lot to it, but also very sensitive. The nose really, Cavity Sam's nose is so bright by comparison. I think both mechanisms are nice, but again, I am so pleased with the 2025 edition. So 2015, very good, very traditional. 2025 was just a great improvement. And as I understand it, this is actually a riff on an earlier edition that they released with a slightly different color theme as well. So this isn't the first time that they've had Operation Fold. But I love that they made it all self-contained with a nice small footprint. Now, on to this vintage model, which, again, runs on 2D batteries. So I'm expecting something really exciting here. Of course, you can't push in the nose to test it because it's just a little incandescent. I already screwed it out, so making sure we have a good connection. Here we go. Let's see what we've got. Oh, do I have a good connection? Oh, no. Let's make sure I didn't overhandle this. There we are. You really have... There we go. So some of these... It looks like this funny bone isn't as sensitive as, say, like the wishbone. And I will need to clean up... It looks like there's a little bit of metal corrosion on this, so I can probably clean up these contacts to make it more sensitive. But... Ooh, that's angry! All right, there you go, guys. It's not as sensitive, but when you hit one of the areas... Ooh, when you have a good connection... Now, this vibrates. This isn't like an audio buzzer. This is definitely something vibrating, just like this 2015 edition. But this one, listen how friendly that sounds compared to this. Cavity Sam is angry. Let me see if I can get you a better view here. Here we go. Oh, man. Now, I wish this original 1965 worked. It did not. I have this out here so you can see the art differences. Right away, you can tell. One, the shade of color of plastic is different. The mechanism does look like the mechanism changed. This is the 65 and this is the mid-70s edition. It's very difficult to get an actual year of production on certain board games because oftentimes if it's a reprint of one where they're just using the same copyright from original registry, you run into this instance where everything from the box to the money to the game board is all copyright 1965 with no particular production date. However, I can tell that the box is different because your 1965 era Milton Bradley box, one, it says the electric game, whereas they later change it to the skill game. You're also going to notice the box is longer and it has a silver stripe on the edge here as opposed to the white Milton Bradley stripe that we came to know later on. So a lot of the games in the 60s era of Milton Bradley had this silver stripe, 60s and earlier. When we get into the later Milton Bradley, they did a bold rebrand and they ended up with this nice, robust white stripe that really stands out. I actually think it was a great move. This looks like a product of its era, and it has a really nice kind of luxury feel with the silver. But I do think that the white just makes a nicer statement when contrasting with the many different colors of their board game box art. But that being said, this isn't like a full review. If you want a full review of Operation, check out the link below in the description. You can see my nice review here where I'll go through all of those different versions. But it really pained me to put up a review without getting a vintage buzzer. So again, I want to thank my friend and subscriber, Chris. Thanks for the heads up on a nice motherload of vintage operations. So I was able to get a decent aged one here to try out the buzzer on. Good looking out, bud. Everybody else, hey, if you had a good time watching this video, or at least as good a time as I did, please subscribe, drop a like, and why don't you thank Chris in the comments for looking out so we can all get this awesome comparison. I mean, listen how angry that is. That's an angry Cavity Sam. Oh, that was great. Hey, thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.